What's up, everybody? This is Emmanuel live at South by Southwest EDU where Philly goes to college. I'm here with Nick. Nick, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody? Let everybody know who you are, what you do, and
Hello.
where you
Absolutely.
from.
Wonderful. My name is Nikkolas Smith. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Emmanuel. I'm an artivist. I'm an artist and an activist. So I'm an artivist. I make art that really speaks to the broken bones of the world, trying to figure out how we can try to inspire people to make a positive change and fix some of the craziness that's happening and how we can move forward as a society. So that's my goal, and I'm glad to be doing that on a full-time basis every day, all day, every day.
That's what's up. Nick, tell us the name of the session that you led and just give us
Yeah.
like a quick synopsis of what you spoke about, what you shared with everybody yesterday.
Yeah, so my talk was, it really is Artivism, like how to change the world. Basically what I was just saying, like Artivism, how can we use art to inspire people to make a positive change? So I kind of go through my whole entire journey of how I ended up here. Growing up in Texas, going to school at Hampton, Virginia, Hampton University, um, eventually getting to Walt Disney, making theme parks, and then becoming a full-time artist. Kind of like looking at all those years and years of what I call Sunday sketches, making art once a week, looking at those broken bones, trying to figure out how we can really like highlight a lot of different stories. There's so many different stories that too many to even make art about, but so many different stories of people who are affected by things that are not working right or systematic issues that affect people negatively. How can we, tell people, oh, this is a problem. Oh, I didn't realize these people were affected by this. Oh, I didn't realize this thing was an issue. How can I, sign a petition or contact a district attorney? How can I do something to help? Because a lot of people want to help, but I feel like art has the power to kind of stop people and say, oh, like, I didn't realize that until I just saw this art piece, and now I'm gonna help out. So just going through that whole, for me, 10+ year journey, and then kind of opening up all of the layers of really like the message and meaning behind the picture books that I do, from the Artivist to Captain America, Black Panther, or like my upcoming one, The History of We. Um, just trying to show people how through these different stories we can start to point to those issues and point to those kind of hopes and dreams of what we want the world to look like.
Wow. Listen, man.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning of your journey.
Yes.
All right. So,
Okay.
all right. How did you get here?
Mhm.
Right? What led you to Hampton? You
Yeah.
could have gone to any school in the country. You chose an
Mhm.
HBCU.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just talk me through that, and
Yeah.
let's do this. What did you major in Hampton?
Yeah.
Why did you go to Hampton? Let's go there.
Great questions. So like I was saying, I grew up in Houston, Texas,
Okay.
south of here, and I was always making art, but I always wanted to go to University of Texas, right here in Austin, and I feel like my mom was kind of like, you need to get out of Texas. Like, you've been in Texas your whole life, you need to get out.
Word.
Also, you know, historically black college would be a great move.
Right.
It was something that it was a type of school that obviously I grew up in predominantly white schools in Houston. I was like, this would be very beneficial for my maturation and growth as a human being. I went to Hampton University. I studied architecture.
Right.
I was actually going to go to Morehouse.
Right.
But Hampton, I kind of like looking at the architecture program. They have a 5-year Master of Architecture program.
Wow.
So I studied architecture. I feel like I use my artistic skills, my passion for like creating worlds,
Right.
to really help me through architecture school. And when I got there, I feel like there were so many different paths But one that stood out the most was theme park design. They had Hampton has a relationship with Disney that goes back a long time.
Wow.
So
Did not know that.
entering a Disney competition to kind of like say, here, this is what I could be, let me show you what I can do for the theme park world,
Right.
and enter a competition. So that's how I learned about Disney. Ended up in California after graduating. So yeah, Hampton was a beautiful time in my life.
Wow. So okay, architecture led. Okay, so what happened first, the chicken or the egg? But like, how'd you
Yeah.
even land on architecture? Is it specifically because of that path to Disney, or was it?
No, it was architecture. For me, it was just like it was kind of like, well, I'm good at I love to make art.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at math. I was not the type of kid to say like, oh, I want to be an artist. Right? I just didn't know. I was like, I need to try a bunch of things. And in one way, I feel like architecture was kind of that job that, like a lot of adults would say, like, get a real job or, maybe even an engineering job. And so architecture is like, okay, that kind of fits in the art world for me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't the type of person as a kid to say like, oh, I make art all day, so I'm gonna be an artist. So I was just exploring, trying different options. And then I felt like once I saw the Disney connection, once I got to Hampton, I was like, oh, perfect.
It all makes sense.
Yeah, like I'll go that way.
So it sounds like I'm an artist myself.
Yeah.
I've done a book myself,
Mm-hmm.
and what always intrigues me and why it keeps me grounded in the work that I do is just trying to help kids connect themselves from what they really love to do for real and into what they're really doing in real life.
Right.
Can you help us see the silver lining between maybe mentors, courses that you might have taken when you're in high school that connected you to what you're doing right now for real, for real?
Yeah, when I was in high school, I think the thing that I loved about high school was, for one, that was the majority of my artistic education. Like, when people see the art that I'm doing now, they ask me about my college art path, and I'm like, I had middle school and high school art lessons. Art, that was art for me. So I love that I could kind of just explore, do a lot of different things. I actually took some Photoshop classes while I was in high school art class.
Right.
Learned actually animation a little bit in Photoshop, but mainly like a lot of different painting styles. Really, that was my opportunity to explore different artists. I was just like, okay, let me combine this with this math skill and all these other things and explore architecture. But I would say that thing that you're gravitate towards in high school, I try to get kids to like realize what their passion is early on, because I wasn't thinking about that in high school. I was just like, oh, I like to do this, but like now when I look back, I'm like, okay, that thing that I was doing all the time, that was the thing that I should have kind of moved towards.
Yeah. If you could just advise any youngin out there, like, hey, like, how could someone go about finding something like that? Like, if you look back on it now, I probably would have done this or that. Like, I'll just give an example. For me, all right, so we had a little rap group. I'm proud of that rap group. Let me not lie.
Okay,
We was doing our thing in high school. We used to do freestyle Fridays. We was killing it.
I want to hear some tracks.
Okay. We can do that. We can do that offline. Okay. All right. So basically, we had an art teacher, and I do marketing now. I do art. I'm a graphic artist, and I do marketing, right? But back in high school, the thing that I connected it to was I would go to this art teacher, and he would airbrush T-shirts that we would wear to promote our Freestyle Fridays, right? And that kind of was a bond that I had with that teacher, and kind of I didn't realize it then, but that's what. If I tie it back, I'm like, yo, that's kind of what I'm doing now. So could you speak to something like that for somebody, like anything like that, any type of what should students be looking at and thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, I was looking at opportunities to use my art skills even outside of the classroom, and now that I think about it, I was in a way, I was kind of trying to do the entrepreneurial art thing where I was like, oh, we have homecoming, and so let me sketch, the design for the homecoming t-shirts, and then it literally became the homecoming t-shirt for the whole school. So then like everybody in school was wearing my shirt.
Right.
So when I think about those opportunities, I'm like, yeah, like I should have, this was the thing that I'm totally grateful for the architecture path that I ended up on. But looking back, I'm like, that was it. And I'm glad I listened to my art teachers, instructors. I did not know at the time, but that was the last official art class that I took. So I'm glad I was listening.
Yeah.
But yeah. No.
All right, so okay, let's dig in a little bit.
Yeah.
From architecture to Disney.
Right.
Let's talk about how you was at Hampton University, HBCU.
Yeah.
You get into Disney.
Yeah.
You're killing it over there.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, let me jump into this art thing all out.
Right.
Because you were doing art there, but it was like what you're doing now is you're still creating works, but there's a difference.
Right.
Yeah. So how did you? You kind of alluded on earlier, but how did you get into Disney? Mm-hmm. And then what compelled you to move out on your own?
Right. So they have what they call the Imaginations competition, not high school, college, juniors and seniors. And I think some grad students can apply to enter the Imaginations competition. That's I feel like one of the best ways to enter Imagineering. So we did that. We entered. We made it to the finals, and they flew us out to California, and we submitted our idea. We actually presented and competed against other schools. And it was great. We had internships after we graduated. I graduated from Hampton in 2008. With Master of Architecture, and I was like, architecture is gonna be my thing for my career. So that internship turned into 11-year career as an Imagineer.
Wow.
Designing theme parks from Hong Kong Disneyland, Shanghai Disneyland.
Wow.
Here, in the States, California, Florida, all different types of, castles, castle design type of things, or, any building or anything that houses a roller coaster or, anything.
Right.
And so that was kind of the journey that I was on. I feel like it was a little bit more engineering specific in terms of how I was creating construction documents, 3D modeling.
The technical part.
Yeah, but I could still do concept art, concept architecture. I can sketch out some ideas here and there for, what I think Wakanda might look like in the theme park. But I would go home nights and weekends and just sketch. This whole Sunday sketch thing kind of formed while I was an architect. So I would just make art. And I was teaching myself Photoshop, digital painting, and really just YouTube tutorials. So it's Cycra or FZD School, all these different, you can learn anything on the internet, right? So I wanted to be kind of like a speed painter working on films, right? So while I'm teaching myself digital painting at home, I'm also ironically running into Ryan Coogler on the red carpet because I'm volunteering for Disney, for films, Or I was also volunteering in South Central, and I would see Coogler because we actually got to California around the same time. I would see him at Imperial Courts, and so I was just running into him hey, here's my artwork, check out my art, you're doing great things. And eventually we connected, and I started working with him on Space Jam and other different what is it, Judas and the Black Messiah, Black Panther, and work like that where I'm doing architecture, but now I'm also, making picture books, and I'm also doing film concept art.
Yeah.
So it's like two different worlds at the same time. And so the art and the concept art and all of this, like making Sunday sketches every week, making art about, the broken bones of the world, that started to get really big, like as a side thing while I'm still a full-time architect. So at some point it just got to the point where it's like, okay, I have to decide what career path I go to. So
how did you find balance and all that? Because
yeah,
I definitely know, like the hustle of your 9 to 5, and then you're at home putting in 10,000 hours, still sharpening your sword.
right.
How did you find balance?
Man, I mean, I feel like because I was so passionate about the art,
Right.
it felt like I felt like that's what brought the balance, is that like I can like work and work and work and burn out on the architectural side, or I can like literally go home and do the thing that I'm most passionate about. And at the same time, the theme park world is a beautiful world, and it's like very magical, and there's a lot of benefit in that. But like, to add on to that, my true passion, like on the side, I feel like that was the balance, and where it like added to the craziness, but it created a balance in some weird way. So yeah, at some point I was like, all right, well, it's actually right before the pandemic.
Right.
Um, I decided, actually my wife convinced me, because she had been telling me for years, like, I think this is the path you need to go. So I was like, right before the pandemic, I left Disney. I was like, I'm just gonna become a full-time artist. Um, I have to do it. I have to just like, jump out there and just
go for
start making art every day. And as soon as I did that, the pandemic happened. Disneyland actually closed down for a year, which was crazy. I started getting emails from publishers like Penguin. They had been looking at my Artivism, my Sunday sketches. At that point, it was 7 years of making Sunday sketches every week. I started getting requests like, "Hey, do you want to illustrate this picture book about slavery called the 1619 Project?" And that's how Born on the Water happened. And then it just kind of opened from there. Like, I mean, 2020 was obviously a wild time.
Definitely.
So much protest art that came from that. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. Michelle Obama retweeted my art of all of them, and everything just blew up again. 2020, my son was born. 2020, I was scheduled to start working on Black Panther, the second film, and Chadwick Boseman died, and we were all devastated. I made art for Chadwick to really just to kind of try to like commemorate his life, and that became my biggest art piece ever. So many things are happening. Like, as soon as I decided I'm gonna jump into my passion full time, everything just like snowballed. So yeah,
That's it's like such a powerful thing for people to hear.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? Because I think like even when you think about yourself as a kid and going through high school, it's stressful to figure out like what you want to do.
Right.
But then when you have the opportunity to lock in, you got to lock in.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think it's important for people to hear that, like, if you have something you're passionate about, obviously be responsible, but take the risk. You know what I mean? Because those chances are rare. How they come. A lot of what you say, I know I got all these questions to ask you, but it's like we flowing. You spoke to the importance of networking and putting yourself out there.
Right.
Could you just elaborate that on a little bit more on that? Just some advice, like, hey, look, go for it. You know what I mean?
I think especially for young creatives, young artists, a lot of times they're worried about even putting their art on social media, or putting out there. For one, that's why a lot of artists stop making art, because they don't want to be judged, or they just want to keep it in. I try to encourage young creatives, like, just put it out there. Like, I was literally teaching myself digital painting, so I would just do like a little scribble thing and like, all right, this is my sketch for this week. And it developed into more and more elaborate art pieces. But like, because I put it out there once a week for years, the moment that I left Disney, it was like, okay, I didn't realize at the time, but people have been tracking that, and they were like, not just people, but like companies, and they were like, all right, we're ready to, you're freelance now? Okay, come
What's
on.
up? Yeah.
So you never know what's gonna happen by putting your art out there. That's how my first picture book happened, was 2016. I was like, the Golden Girls of Rio, which is my first picture book. The Olympics were happening. I was like, hey, would anybody like to see a picture book that looks like this? And I made what I wanted the cover to be. It went viral on Facebook, and next thing I know, Barnes and Noble was emailing me like, can you turn this one art piece into a picture book in 3 weeks? And I was like, yes.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, you gotta be ready, and don't be afraid to put it out there.
That's a fact. That's a fact. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Give some space to talk a little bit about your book. What is Artivism? What does it mean to you? And tell us more about this book. I think I'll say this. I was at South by Southwest EDU last year, and I went to the 1619 installation. I'm like, I need to get a book for my niece, Autumn. So I was looking through the books, and that's just seeing the cover of that book, and I was like, man, I gotta get this book. And she loves that book, but I didn't let her leave the house with it. I said, this is gonna be our thing. You gonna come to the house because I like the book. You like this book. But let me train your principles, because you don't know how to. What I see in your books, and why I want to give you space to talk about it, is the importance of the importance of people seeing themselves in the book, in the illustrations. The importance of my young niece Autumn seeing some likeness of her in the book, and then the book has that depth and that story there, that seed there. Speak to us about everything I just said. I know I said a lot, but speak to us all that and Artivism, the book.
I mean, for one, I just feel like when I started making picture books, there were, I don't know, I forget the percentage, but it's a very low percentage of picture books that even feature Black or brown characters on the cover. So I was like, that needs to come out. Like, if I'm gonna make books, like, I'm gonna feature some chocolate babies on the cover. I have a book called My Hair is Poofy, and that's okay. Just even the Artivist, who kind of looks like my son with the big curly fro. These stories that I feel like kids who I wish I had books like that when I was little. I wish I had I Am Ruby Bridges and books like this, where I can try to for one, uncover a lot of parts of U.S. history that have been covered up. That flag, which is about the Confederate flag, and these two girls who their friendship is tested by the appearance of the flag. And stories that, like I said, like there are so many broken bones. There are so many things that are systematically been put in place to really harm people, especially marginalized communities. So I'm gonna make a book about that, and all these different topics that I feel like I'm literally like going down the list of all the artivism that I've done, and say I'm gonna make a book about all of these different topics. And then the Artivist was kind of like all those 10 years of artivism. So it talks about environmental justice and social justice, protect trans kids, and Black Lives Matter. All of these things are all in that book. So basically all those 10 years put into one book, where this kid is an activist. I mean, he loves art, but he also wants to help his community. And so he goes from city to city making murals about how he can inspire people to, give back. And I feel like one of the big takeaways from that book, it really is for kids to see. There's one point where like they throw a big like Love Today parade where he breaks down like love is a verb, like love is giving, love is helping, love is donating.
Yes.
Sometimes love is protesting.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we gotta protest, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, like let's love each other, like, and don't explain, but like, what is love?
What is
you know,
it? Yeah.
what exact? So I wanted kids to be able to see with the Artivist, like, oh, this is what love can look like through all these different ways. And then also there's so many creatives who do so many different types of art, right? So like you said, like poetry, rapping, you know, you can write a book, you can make a film on your phone, you can dance, you can sing, you can draw and paint, like so. And at the end of the Artivist, you'll see like all these different types of Artivists, you know, not just painters, but everything, you know. So I always I'll start my talks in schools by saying like, raise your hand if you're an artist, and then explain to them like everybody is an artist. Like
that's true.
everybody is creative.
That's
so
true.
Like, what is that creative thing that you do? And then find some broken bone in your society, and then combine it, and then make some Artivism. Yeah, so that's how it is.
Super dope, man.
Thank
so
you.
We always like to end off with some quick fire conversations.
Cool.
Yo, we could talk. Yo.
Yeah.
I got like, and I just really enjoyed the conversation. A lot of things that you're dropping, a lot of wisdom in there, and important things for people to watch. Is, you know, we're for the students, which is anybody. Like, if you're trying to do something, Nick is actually is an epitome of just going for it. If you have something you're passionate about in this life, don't hesitate. Go for it. Network. Make the moves. Do what you got to do. So I really appreciate your story and your journey.
Thank you.
But let's get to the quick fire questions.
All right, let's go.
These are quick.
All right, let's go.
All right. First question is, what is your favorite college memory?
2003. I was in the band. Shout out to the HU marching force.
Okay.
I mean, really the whole year of being in the band as a freshman, but we also played with Chingy on the field. I like the way you do that, right? That was it. Playing with Chingy. Shout out Chingy.
That's dope. Shout out Chingy. All right. I like to ask these questions for those that went to HBCUs. Could you speak to the importance of an HBCU? Why should a student consider going to an HBCU?
Yeah, for me, that was the first time that I was in an African studies class. So that alone was impactful for me. I had a black male professor, a black male teacher for the first time.
Wow.
That's huge. I feel like just the camaraderie, the ability to have more of a deep dive into your ancestry, your roots. It's a family for life. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, last question. If you could say one thing to your high school self, what would that be?
One thing to my high school self would be, art is your passion. But you don't have to jump into art right now. Feel free to take the architecture route because it's great also.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Nick. We
appreciate
really appreciate
it.
you,
Thank
brother.
you, bro.
This was great.
Wonderful.
Yo, we out.